In the beginning, God, better known as Elohim, created the heavens and the earth. He established time by creating days. Time began with day 1 and continued through day 7. During that first week, the Creator established a pattern for all time. He worked 6 days, and He rested on the 7th day. From that point on, time was reckoned from Sabbath to Sabbath. These 7-day periods are called weeks. The scriptures tell us that Elohim blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. The Hebrew word for sanctify is kodesh. Kodesh means set apart. Elohim later called the 7th day the Sabbath and reaffirmed that it was set apart. Notice the name of the Creator displayed in the Paleo-Hebrew script as Yod-He-Vav-He. His name is not the Lord, and many translations insert that title in place of his name. The Sabbath is set apart to Him. So when you set the Sabbath apart, you are identifying with the one who created the Sabbath and set it apart at the beginning of creation. When He ultimately established His covenant with Israel at Mount Sinai, He audibly spoke the 10 commandments, and the longest and most detailed commandment involved the Sabbath. Here is the 4th commandment. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it set apart. 6 days you shall labor to do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah, your Elohim. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days Yahuwah made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore Yahuwah blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart. Notice that this commandment also involves the affirmative duty of working for 6 days, followed by rest on the 7th day. The commandment therefore shows us how to live our lives on a weekly basis as we follow the pattern established by the Creator on Creation Week. The Sabbath was at the beginning and continues through all time. That's why He commanded the covenant people to remember the Sabbath and keep it set apart. Just as their Creator set it apart at the first week of creation, so the covenant people continue that example by setting apart the 7th day. By doing so, they're commemorating creation and the one who created the heavens and the earth. In fact, their obedience is a sign that they're in the covenant. He declared that the Sabbath was a sign of the covenant. The Hebrew word for sign is ot. It shares the root of light, which is or. It is meant to be something visible and can also mean a mark. The Sabbath was an important part of knowing the Creator and was an integral part of being in relationship with Him. The rainbow was the first sign described in the scriptures, and it actually reveals the visible spectrum of light. It was and remains a sign between the Creator and all flesh. It's a sign of an everlasting covenant concerning judgment. And the Sabbath is also the sign of an everlasting covenant, but the covenant involves redemption. It's actually visible in 4 dimensions as the covenant people demonstrate this sign through their actions. Just as the rainbow was a visible sign or mark, so was the Sabbath. It was a sign that those in covenant with the Creator of the Sabbath would demonstrate as they rested on the Sabbath. They would visibly obey the mark of the covenant as they rested. So important was the Sabbath that they were also to observe Sabbath years and let the covenant land rest every 7 years. The land resting revealed the connection and union between the people and the land. It was an integral part of the covenant, and it was Israel's failure to observe the Sabbath that was a large part of their breaking the covenant, resulting in their exile. The land was not allowed to rest for 70 Sabbath years during a 490-year period of time. That was the reason why they were exiled for 70 years. Just because they broke the covenant, though, doesn't mean that the Creator changed His Sabbath. Nothing changed this sign. Elohim does not change, and He never changed His Sabbath. There is no scriptural or historical evidence that Elohim ever changed the Sabbath. In fact, despite the fact that Israel broke the covenant, Yahuwah promised that He would renew that covenant. We read in Jeremiah 31 through 34, "Behold, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, says Yahuwah. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah. I will put my Torah in their minds and write it on their hearts, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. No more shall every man teach his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, says Yahuwah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and their sin I will remember no more. Notice the promise of the Torah being put in their minds and written on their hearts. In many translations, you'll see the word law, and many people misunderstand the Torah by calling it the law. A better translation of the word Torah is the righteous instructions of the Creator that show us how to live lives pleasing to Him. The Messiah clearly indicated that He didn't come to abolish the Torah, but to fulfill it. Through His fulfillment, He would mediate the renewed covenant. And that is what Jeremiah was actually prophesying about, a renewed covenant, renewing the covenant that had been broken. The point of the renewed covenant was to make greater the former covenant, so that we can have the Torah put in our minds and written on our hearts. The point of this is so that we can obey the commandments. That would obviously include the sign of the covenant, the Sabbath. In fact, when the promised Messiah came, He declared Himself to be master of the Sabbath. Through His blood, He renewed the covenant that had been broken, and He did it at a Passover meal. So if you're in the covenant renewed by the Messiah, then the sign of that renewed covenant is clearly still the Sabbath. In fact, it was prophesied that the stranger, also known as the Gentile, would join Yahuwah and observe His Sabbath. The Sabbath is a visible sign that demonstrates you have joined the covenant. It is available to anyone. This was always the purpose of the Assembly of Israel, to draw the nations of the planet to the Creator. Israel failed to obey, and as a result, they were punished and exiled. The Messiah came to renew the broken covenant, and by His blood, all may now enter into the covenant and receive the blessing promised to them who keep from defiling the Sabbath and hold fast to the covenant. If the Messiah is your master, then you must bear His sign, the sign of the Sabbath. He never changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to Sunday. This was done by the Roman Catholic Church centuries after the death and resurrection of the Messiah. Roman Emperor Constantine, while actually an avid sun worshiper, helped establish the religion of Christianity and made it the official religion of the Roman Empire. This new religion opposed Shabbat observance in favor of Sunday sacredness and made the day change official in the Council of Laodicea. This is an undisputable historical fact. It was intended to make the faith palatable to pagan worshippers, and the Roman Catholic Church essentially became a blending of sun worship and the faith described in the Scriptures. In fact, the Catholic Church considers the change from Sabbath to Sunday to be her mark of authority. While those who are in covenant with the Creator bear the sign or mark of the Sabbath, those who follow the Roman Catholic Church display a different mark through their tradition. They keep a different Sabbath, a day established by men to venerate the sun. Therefore, they have taken on the mark of a pagan god. If we enter into the covenant renewed by the Messiah, we are to bear the mark of His sign. We are not to change the sign. Instead, we are to call the Sabbath a delight. Through the prophet Isaiah, we know that in the future time will continue to be reckoned from Sabbath to Sabbath. Therefore, if you desire to be in a covenant relationship with the Creator, the covenant renewed by the Messiah, then you should be visibly demonstrating the sign of the covenant in your life, the sign of the Sabbath.